I'm an alumni of IP&T. Okay, I was here in your spots a few decades ago. So actually, it was at the time when the department decided to change its name. So one of the problems that we had was that people would ask any of us, all right, what are you studying? And we said, instructional science. Oh, okay, so it's really good, you're in construction, you know. And so it was really unintelligible for most people to know what was it that we were studying. And so in one of these seminars, the department and all the students got together, and we decided to change the name of the department. And that is where IP&T came from. So this was in the mid-90s, late 90s, okay, when the department changed its name. One of the things that I learned while doing my doctoral program here was I did it the wrong way, okay? So I started the program because I love education, I love teaching, I love technology, so this was kind of the ideal conjunction of everything that I wanted to do, but I had no idea what to do for my dissertation, all right? And so I took all the coursework, and the last class was the research conceptualization course. Do you still have that? Research synthesis and conceptualization.
It's not called that.
Okay, so it was, so let me describe the course. It was, Van Monfrans was the faculty, okay? And so it was epic stories of Adrian Van Monfrans, okay? Together with pushing you to actually get a topic for the darn dissertation. Okay. So that was the whole idea was get a topic, all right? And so I did get a topic. At that time, I was working already full-time. I was working for the MTC in instructional development. Then I worked for the church. And it took me 5 years to do the dissertation. Okay, so I finished the whole program, 7 years, 51 weeks. I had 1 whole week to spare to the deadline.
Don't any of you do that.
Don't any of you do that. All you online people, okay, don't do that either, all right? So that is not the smart way of doing your program. At the same time, David Wiley came and finished around the same time that I did, but he took like 2 years or less, okay, because he knew exactly what he was going to do. All right, so get a topic for your dissertation early on. So the interesting thing was that one of the things that intrigued me, and actually I did my dissertation on, was on the issue of what happens actually after an instructional designer creates an instructional system. How do teachers actually use the creation? Okay, what actually happens with that? And so the whole idea was to study the implementation of instructional systems over long periods of time, and especially focusing on how do actually teachers use the instructional system that you created over long periods of time. One of the things that I remember hearing in one of these seminars also, Dr. Sadowicz and Van Monfrans were reporting on the different evaluation projects that they had been contracted to do, okay? And they listed by year, you know, like going back 20 years in their careers, or all the evaluation projects, curricular evaluation projects that they were contracted to do by the state of Utah, okay? Almost all of those projects, the result of those evaluations were failed to implement. Okay, in a nutshell, you know, basically they couldn't really say whether the new program or the new thing work or not, because it actually never really got implemented, right? So that was something that actually triggered in my mind a desire to study this topic, all right? And I created a whole model that is in my dissertation that should be somewhere in here. Or I don't know, maybe you got rid of all those things already. But that was, 2000, okay, in the dark ages and so on. But the problem really of implementation still remains. Okay, so for example, ask yourself the question, you have a group of instructional designers at the church curriculum department that have developed the Come Follow Me curriculum. The manuals for individuals, families, Sunday school, primary, the whole thing, all right? How much of what those designers had in mind that how people should implement that curriculum as a system, how much is actually going to be implemented? What is actually going to happen over time in individual Sunday school classes, in individual primary classes, and in all our individual homes and lives? That is the question. I prepared, last month I had the opportunity to do a presentation at the Utah Canvas Summit on this topic, how to increase Canvas adoption in your school. So the issue is the state of Utah received a license for Canvas for all the public school and charter schools for 10 years for free. All right, is it 10 years or 5 years?
I don't know.
So it's either 10 or 5 years. I think that is 10. But basically, the idea is, okay, just we are going to really get into it. BYU Independent Study, partner with UEN, and we have a contract with UEN to offer our independent study courses to UEN so other teachers can download the content of the courses and use that for blended courses. Okay. The real question is, who is going to actually use those tools? All right, and so I prepared this presentation with that particular problem in mind, but the idea is whenever, even though we are going to be talking about Canvas and Canvas in the schools, try to think about any instructional system, anything that you are developing, have developed, or you are thinking of how are people actually going to use over time, okay? Many times we get into doing the research, we do the development, we do formative evaluation, summative evaluation, and then publish, and then hooray, we are done. Okay, and then what happens?
The researcher leaves. The researcher leaves.
The researcher leaves.
There's not that energy to kind of guide it, and it falls apart.
It falls apart, it dies, okay? Technology changes, okay? Or some new cool thing comes around, or the teachers, receive the system and they are like, I don't get it, and okay? So this is a very, very important problem. So these are some of the questions that we are going to try to address today. So this presentation is it was created mostly for the school administrators and technical administrators of Canvas for the schools, but in this environment, let's again think about this issue of implementation. So the first two questions, will Canvas be one more shelfware? All right, what is the answer? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes, So the second question is, will teachers actually use Canvas at your school? What is the answer to that one? Okay, let's see what. So I propose that many teachers will actually continue doing what they are doing. Okay, many teachers, all right, have succeeded at doing what they are doing. Why would they change? Okay, so they are really not, there are many that are not going to. Some teachers are going to give Canvas a try, and some are going to quickly give it up and revert to what they are doing. Okay, now the answer to the second question, will teachers actually use Canvas? The answer, I think, is also yes. Okay. Some teachers have started or will start using Canvas right away and figure out ways to succeed in using it. So it's not kind of an all or nothing proposition. Some teachers will give Canvas a very good try, and some will use some features to their advantage. Not everything, but the question is, okay, how do we help implement this system, all right, and all the things that come with it better, okay? There are going to be some teachers that love it. So, and that is kind of similar to any type of innovation. This Diffusion of Innovations by Everett Rogers is the seminal work on this topic, okay? So, if you don't have it in your library, you should, okay? If you don't have it in your library and you can afford it, read the Wikipedia article, okay? So, and that's the link there, so Diffusion of Innovations. And it has a good summary of what the book is about. But this is really, this book actually, and the research that Everett Rogers did is not necessarily related to education. Actually, he started in agriculture. He started with the problem of how do farmers change the use of hybrid seeds. Okay, how do they adopt that innovation? But it really is an important work because it applies to every field where you need to diffuse an innovation. All right. In this book, he identifies 4 elements that influence adoption. One is the innovation itself. So there are some characteristics of the innovation that you need to study and be aware of that will help or hinder the adoption of that innovation. Okay. Communication channels. This is how are, what are the tools and the things that you do or that you have available to you in order to communicate the advantages of this innovation in effective ways. So this is an area that in academia we are usually falling very, very short, okay? Again, because our objective is to pretty much finish after publication, okay? Some people get the luxury of being able to continue and developing kind of a research agenda and following through with that and so on and develop a communication channel, but many, many times we fail to create and maintain good communication channels. The third element is time. How much time are we giving to the implementation of the innovation? And the fourth one is the social system. Who are the opinion leaders? Who are, analyzing who are actually the innovators and so on. And we are going to look into this part of the problem more closely in a little bit. So let's look at some characteristics of the innovation. So these are some of the characteristics that Roger Everett in his research found. What is the relative advantage? What does that mean? What do you think that having relative advantage means in terms of an innovation? Yes?
How I see it is if you have a certain product, right? And in our case, we're talking about, say, an LMS like Canvas, right? Well, there are other LMSs that's not just Canvas, right?
Mhm.
So what features, what offerings does Canvas bring to teachers and helping them complete their tasks that other LMSs can't do as efficiently or can't do at all?
That's right,
So
yeah.
based off of the similar competitors, what can Canvas do better?
Yeah. So imagine I'm a teacher, okay, I'm, let's say, a high school teacher. I have been teaching for 20 years. I have my gradebook already developed. I have my lessons plans. I've been teaching this forever and so on. Why change? What is Canvas going to give me that I don't have already? Okay, so that is the critical aspect of the innovation, is being able to identify what is the relative advantage of this innovation as opposed of using competitors or the status quo. Okay, because that is always the default position. Keep doing what you are doing, especially if you are good at it. The next characteristic is compatibility. So what would compatibility mean in the case of here innovations? What are we talking about? What do you think that this characteristic of the innovation means?
Just how it relates to like the already existing system, like how well you can implement it with other things that are going on and other, just kind of like the environment, I guess, how well it fits into that.
That's right, yeah. So for example, if you have an LMS that plays very well with the student information system that your school uses, well, that is compatible. My paper gradebook is not, okay? So if I come selling you some other thing that is not compatible with another existing system or process, then it's not playing nicely. So that is kind of the things that you need to assess. Okay. Complexity of the innovation. What would that mean? The complexity of the innovation. Yes.
How easy is it to learn and use? Your
Yeah.
answer is right.
Okay, so how easy it is to learn or use? What would happen if an innovation is very complex? What would it mean that an innovation is very complex? What do you think? How would complexity affect? Is it a kind of a direct relationship or an inverse relationship?
You got Mike.
Mike?
You have the mic. He relinquished because
I'll
of
try
Mike.
to give it to me through telepathy. No, I just think that if it's too complex, then the time that it would save or the stress that it would save you is foregone because of the complexity of the actual innovation.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so think about the new curriculum Can Follow Me. All right, in terms of this characteristic of complexity. How is that going to be perceived by the families, by the members? Okay. It's not for you or for the instructional designer, it's complex relative to how the users, the end users, are going to perceive it. Okay. Triability. This means, can I give it a try and back away? Or is it something that once I invest into it, I'm locked in? All right. The more triability that an innovation has, the higher the opportunities for adoption they are. Some innovations, okay, have they go kind of the other way. They basically say, well, yes, you are trying the innovation, but once you lock in to this innovation, switching is hard. All right? I'm thinking of this. All right? how many people switch from iPhone to Android, or from Android to iPhone. All right. So, observability. Can I see the effects of the innovation being used by others? Can I actually observe the relative advantage and the ways that this innovation is helping or not helping other people in that? So these are the main characteristics of innovations that are going to affect whether the innovation succeeds or fails. So let's give very briefly some examples here. Okay, pencils. Okay, pens. It's just we don't even think of it as a technology. It's an amazing technology, actually, if you think. Very, very easy to adopt. All right, has lots of relative advantages. It's compatible. Not very complex. I can try it or not. I can see other people use it. I'm hooked. I buy it. Okay, before the pen, the ballpoint pen was invented, everything was ink or pencil, graphite pencil. All right, so really a great invention. There are some innovations, for example, smart boards. What do you think about smart boards, and how have they done as an innovation in classrooms?
I remember using that maybe in the, 6th, 8th grade, 7th grade. I never saw one again.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So a salesman did a very good job around that time.
Yeah, and I remember as a 7th grader, 8th grader, thinking, whoa, this is amazing and all that. But as you got through the years, and I think high school teachers were much more aware of this, that to them, in what tasks and physical movements that you could do on a smart board, you still could essentially do to a certain extent almost as effectively without. And so therefore the adoption of the smart board didn't last horribly long, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess not horribly, that's a negative.
It really didn't go as an innovation. It really didn't take.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that is kind of my observation. So let's look at Canvas. So now let's think of a specific example, but you can do this same analysis with any innovation that you have in mind. All right. So let's look at Canvas. Relative advantage, I give it a medium. Okay. Compatibility, medium. It has some things that are really, really good. It generally is compatible with other SIS systems and so on. Okay. Complexity, it's actually not very complex. Canvas is very easy to learn. Most people can start using it without much problem. Triability, once you start, okay, if you decide to use it, you are basically having to put all your eggs into that basket, okay? Because, if I'm using as a teacher, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to use Canvas in my class this year, I cannot have some assignments in Canvas and some assignments out of it. I have to really put all the resources in there. So trying it is a very high cost for the teacher, as far as the work that they have to do. Observability, good. There's lots of examples to see and whatnot. So this is kind of an easy way of, assessing how the innovation goes in all these areas. Now let's go and look at the social network, the social system surrounding an innovation. This is a classical curve that it was created by Everett, okay, the diffusion of innovation curve, and basically what it says is that about 2.5% of your population are going to be innovators. These are the people that are always willing to take risk and to try new things. They are the ones that stand on hours at the Apple store before the new iPhone is released to buy it. They have to have the latest gadget. They are willing to try anything, all right? In a high school, you may have 2 or 3 of these, okay, of innovators. So, you know, when I was talking to the people here in the conference, I said, you need to find those. You need to identify who they are, because those are the ones that you really want to work with and try them to try Canvas and try these courses and so on. Okay. Early adopters are about 13.5% of your curve, of your population. And the interesting thing about this group is that, yes, they are willing to follow the innovators and give the innovations a try. This group has the highest concentration of opinion leaders. An opinion leader is someone that whenever they have an opinion, because of their social connections in the network, others are going to follow. Others are going to say, yeah, that is worth listening to, I'm going to follow that. So if the early adopters develop a good attitude towards your innovation, and then they are able to broadcast that opinion to their social network, then the innovation has a chance to keep growing and diffusing to the early majority. Okay? If the early adopters develop a negative attitude or a neutral attitude toward innovation, you're done. That's it. Okay? Because those will be the opinion leaders that are going to say, you know, and it's not going to move forward. In many diagrams of this same curve, they build here the diffusion chasm. Okay, so there's a big gap for an innovation to diffuse from the early adopters to the early majority. Okay? Any questions so far about this? So it is important to understand what are the characteristics of these different groups of people, because you need to, if you are really going to be in the business of implementing innovations, you need to find the innovators and identify the early adopters and help them develop good opinions and good attitudes about the innovation, because they are going to carry the water. The early majority is, they have, you know, an above average social position. There's a few opinion leaders here, but not many, okay, in the early majority. So they don't have that much social influence in your network, but there's still some. The late majority are the ones that are always skeptical of trying new things. They wait, okay? They have little financial liquidity, so basically they are not willing to invest so much, okay? And there's not many opinion leaders, if any, in this group. And then the laggards are the ones that are always last to adopt. They are the ones that are, you know, most of the time not going to go for it, okay? So don't try to spend your time and energy convincing them, okay? So if you identify someone, and you can almost tell by how are they relating to other innovations. if they are going to be, where are they going to be with your innovation, okay? So this is the decision process, is to have knowledge about the innovation, persuasion. You know, you have to be able to persuade the opinion leaders, the early adopters, the innovators, help them to make a decision, and the decision is either to reject or accept the innovation, and then you have to actually keep coaching them through the implementation until each person receives some sort of confirmation. The confirmation is basically that sense of, I did the right choice. I choose right in going with this, okay? Or I get it now. I'm using this. I'm going to keep using it, okay? So things can go wrong at all of these stages, okay, to tell you the truth, all right? You can, you know, people can get some knowledge about an innovation, but if they are not persuaded to even get to the decision point, nothing is going to happen, okay? If they get to the decision point, there's a 50-50 chance at least that they are going to reject it, all right? If they accept the innovation, but they don't get any support or instructions or further feedback during the implementation, it's probably not going to be implemented again, okay? And if they don't get a confirmation that they did the right thing in choosing that innovation, they are going to also drop it, okay? So it is actually a marvel that actually things do change. Okay. So there are also some traits of teachers that affect their adoption of innovations. So teachers, I press the wrong key. So most teachers, this is what I found in my research, that most teachers seek to have equilibrium. They try, discard, adopt, repeat, develop their own personal teaching practice. Okay, how many times have you seen a teacher that you know they teach this class, this lesson exactly the same way year after year? Okay, I see a couple of heads, okay, bobbing that way, all right. You haven't seen them, okay, you see them just once, but you can tell, okay, yeah, this teacher does this all the time. They tell the same jokes, they laugh at the same times, you know. So, yeah, it's uncanny, really. So those teachers are in equilibrium, okay? How do you think that they are going to take to adopt an innovation? Okay? You know, so it's very hard to ask teachers to change when they are in equilibrium, all right? So a new teacher, for example, that haven't been teaching very long, they're probably more willing to give it a try to an innovation because they are still seeking to form that equilibrium, and so they are still gathering and trying things in order to find that time of equilibrium, okay? Teachers also try their best. So we cannot blame someone for not adopting our innovation, okay? So it's not their fault, really. And the same thing goes for any of the things that we develop, okay? So we have to be careful with that. So I see a comment here, early adopters remind me of bloggers who demo things and share it in their blog. That's right, you know. So there, you know, that is one way now that we have of identifying who are the early adopters. They are those guys that are always trying new things, and then they love to comment. And why do they do it? Why do they do it? Okay, Tyler, why do you think that those people are there willing? They get free samples, okay? So, but there's another more important reason of why they are willing to do that. Because it takes a lot of work for them to do it, okay? They are also excited about new technology. It is kind of an intrinsic satisfaction, all right? I propose to you that the main reason why they like to do that is because they love being the opinion leaders. They love that position of the power that it gives them, their blog and their following, in saying, I'm helping shape the opinion about this innovation by all this group of people. Okay, that is really the power of being an opinion leader. Once a person achieves that position in a social network, it's very, very hard for them to give it up. Okay, because they really value that. Okay, and so it is very important, if you are trying to, again, diffuse an innovation, to identify those opinion leaders and work with them in order to help them evaluate and hopefully form a positive opinion about innovation. Okay, great comment. Okay, so Tyler says they like people who value their opinion. Yes, they really like that. And teachers, okay, I also think that teachers are free implementation agents. So we cannot force anyone, as much as we would like to sometimes. Okay, we really cannot do that. There's lots of reasons why, but you know, a lot has to do with the plan of salvation, you know, and so on, you know. But really, teachers especially are very much free implementation agents. Once a teacher is in their classroom, it's their kingdom. They do whatever they want to do, and that's it. Okay, they have, you know, no matter what the administration says or anything, they are going to do what they are going to do. But always, I think that they are with very good intentions. Okay. Teachers are also creative. This is also an important point for the adoption of innovations. If an innovation is given to the teachers a complete solution that they have to implement and is going to do everything for them, what is going to do for their creativity? What do you think that is going to happen? Poof. Okay. So if the innovation that you are implementing is highly scripted or highly, you know, developed so much that it really almost replaces the teacher, teachers are going to probably have a very, very hard time adopting that, because they want to be creative. That is part of who they are. Okay. And as much as they moan and complain about no time and needing help and this and that, they still like to be creative, really. So teachers feel frustrated when they cannot express their creativity. So it is important for them to be able to express their creativity with the innovation that we are putting on them, and also to have ways of them expressing that frustration in creative and constructive ways. Okay, a destructive way of them expressing their frustration is basically saying, forget it, and not using the innovation anymore, dropping it altogether, right? A more constructive way would be to say, okay, what parts of the innovation do you like? Okay, what parts are you going to put your creativity in order to still use the innovation? So there are different possible implementation scenarios, okay? Well, the first one is called the extinction implementation. That is basically when the teachers try something, they get frustrated, and then they just stop using it. Lots of, we have down the hill, okay, a whole graveyard of innovations, okay, that have gone extinct there. So that is not a happy place. A lot of innovations get to the stable low implementation stage. This is a stage where some features of the innovation are implemented and others are not, okay? Think, for example, of this question. How many features of Word do you use? If you think about the totality of the things that Word, the word processor, can do, how many of those do you use normally? A fraction, okay? You know, there are things, I've never been able to really figure out how the darn styles work, okay? So, and I just use the default style. Don't ask me to customize anything, okay? That's fine, you know, whatever. All right. So, but you know, there's a lot of those things, so that is kind of overbuilt in many cases, okay? A stable high implementation, that would be kind of a very, very good thing, almost Nirvana-like, where now a lot of the innovation is being adopted and implemented. The next one is what I call an unstable implementation with a catastrophic change, okay? So this is the case where users of the innovation try it, but because of the innovation dampens their creativity or doesn't, you know, is too complex or so on, they are able to try it one time, you know, giving it a good try, then trying something else and this and that, until they actually say, forget it, I'm just going to use this. And in the best case scenario, they get to a stable low implementation or they go extinct, okay, after the catastrophic change. Catastrophic change means basically a very large change on how the implementation is, the innovation is implemented. There are some cases where you see some aligned high implementation where the people that implement the innovation actually choose to implement almost everything. They buy the whole thing, all right? Rare cases, but I've seen them. So that is why I had to include them. Okay. So these are some of the ideas of what you can do in order to think about the implementation. Implementation is not going to magically happen. You actually have to plan it. You have to identify the social system of your environment. You have to actually identify the opinion leaders, the innovators. Okay, so the innovators and how to find them. Here I have some of the characteristics of innovators. And like I said, there are maybe 2 or 3 in a large school. Okay. So the trick is really to find them all. Who are the early adopters? Remember, you have to identify also the early adopters. There are some techniques even for trying to map the opinion leader sphere of influence, okay? So in some cases, in some high-stake innovations, implementations, people have done surveys where they ask the question, if you have a question about some computer technology in the school, who do you ask? Okay, just that question. You survey the school with that question, and immediately you are going to get the network of who are the opinion leaders and the innovators and so on, that way. Does that make sense? Okay. So, you can also plan to recruit new teachers and mentor those by early adopters. Okay, so all this is saying is to actually plan how are you going to do the innovation. It is important to give it time to plan what activities and who are you going to be working with at different points in time on the process. And then use the appropriate communication channels. You need to recognize the accomplishment of the adopters, help them feel that confirmation that they have done the right thing, help them testify, okay, in appropriate ways to others about their experience and so on. So what I'm saying is here you need to actually be, if you are an implementer, you need to purposefully manage the communication channels that you are going to use. If not, it's not going to happen. Or it could happen in uncontrolled ways, okay? So, and hopefully the idea is for you to become a better change agent yourself, okay? So that is kind of the whole idea of this topic, all right? Any questions, okay, at this point? Mm-hmm. Yes? Mm-hmm.
I apologize, Pablo, I had to step out a little bit, so if you talked about this,
I
please just
know.
tell me to
No problem.
watch the recording.
We'll just,
But I think one of the struggles that we often run into is we approach tech integration with kind of an ADDIE mindset. We design and implement it, we design some kind of solution, we develop it, and then we try to implement it. We view those as separate steps, right? And so we start with, the question we're starting with is, how do we get folks to adopt Canvas, not why aren't they adopting Canvas, and how can Canvas change to be more adoptable to them, right? So understanding how our implementation requirements should be influencing our design in kind of this recursive way. So could you talk about that a little bit? Because we have a room full of designers who I think we need to understand not just that we design something and we throw it over the wall to education, or we step over the wall and we just try to get people banging to their heads that they need this thing, versus trying to understand why things aren't being adopted and how that should be influencing our design.
that's right, excellent. So the answer to that is basically, before I answer, anybody has some ideas of how to answer that question out of the things that we talk about here? Okay, let me give you some ideas of the answer. One is this: if you don't plan the implementation, it won't happen. Okay? So the issues about planning the implementation, identifying the social system of the environment that you are working with, doing these things, timing of the implementation plan, planning the communication channels, that is critical. Okay? If no one, so if I'm a designer and I finish, my design, I did my summative evaluation, I published my paper, and done, go, use it. Okay, not much is going to happen. All right, so this part of implementation is really often overlooked and underestimated. The other thing, the other part to your question, go back, is this. these characteristics of the innovation itself are things that you can plan for during the design and the development. Okay? Most of the times we are focused on different characteristics of our design, but not focused on how complex is this. All right, with the view in mind of how is it going to affect the implementation. Okay, so these are also characteristics that you can, during the design phase, pay attention to. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this is very practical stuff. This is very, very practical. Okay.
Okay, we have to end the seminar here. We want to thank Pablo for his participation today. Thank you so much.